We're in session in cause number 328546. The case is styled the state of Texas versus Ronald Call Promise Jr. Mr. Promise, is that your full name?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. Promise?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks for asking. Mr. Promise, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Promise, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Promise, you may put your hand down. Now, Mr. Promise, you're here represented by your attorney, Mr. Charles McIntosh. Mr. McIntosh, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Judge. Thank you.
That's good. Mr. McIntosh, do you waive a record in Mr. Promise's case?
I do, Your Honor.
Mr. Promise, I have before me an information that alleges that on or about October 23rd of 2020, while you in Jefferson County, Texas, operating a motor vehicle in a public place, that you committed the Class A misdemeanor offense of driving while intoxicated with an alcohol concentration level of 0.15 or more. Mr. Promise, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to this charge, Mr. Promise, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Mr. Promise, are you pleading guilty? You said guilty?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Promise, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Promise, I have before me a document that is titled to misdemeanor plea admonishment. Mr. I have to change that to Class A. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Promise, I have before me a document that is titled to misdemeanor plea admonishment, is also labeled as State's Exhibit Number 1. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Promise, your offense is a Class A misdemeanor, and the range of punishment for Class A misdemeanors is confinement in jail for a term not to exceed 1 year, a fine not to exceed $4,000, or both such confinement and fine. Do you understand the range of punishment for a Class A misdemeanor?
Yes, sir.
On page 2 of the same document, Mr. Promise, there are a set of initials on a line next to a box that says check guilty. The initials are R or P. Did you place your initials on this document?
Yes, sir.
On the next page of the same document, there's a signature above the line that's titled defendant. Did you sign this document?
Yes, sir.
And on the next page, on the next document rather, which is titled trial court certification of defendant's right of appeal, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature on this document?
Yes, sir.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box check states that this is a plea bargain case. You have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes,
The
sir.
second box states that you are waiving your right to appeal, which means you're giving up your right to appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Promise, I also have before me a document that is titled Discovery Certification. Now, Mr. Promise, do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature above the line that's titled defendant?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Promise, prior to signing and initialing these documents that I've just mentioned to you, did your attorney, Mr. McIntosh, go over these documents with you?
Yes, sir.
And did you read and understand everything in these documents?
Yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
State, I have before me State's Exhibit Number 1. State, you like to offer State's 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No objections.
No objections. State's Exhibit Number 1 will be admitted. Mr. McIntosh, you advised that counsel, Mr. Promise. Is there any evidence that he is currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Promise, your attorney, Mr. McIntosh, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes, sir.
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Promise, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea of guilty and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is that agreement?
The agreement is for 35 days county jail. Defendant is to surrender at this time.
Okay. Mel, could you give me his probable cause affidavit? I mean, not probable cause, the affidavit of indigence on Mr. Ronald Promise, clause number 328546. Mr. Promise, the state is offering that you serve 35 days in the Jefferson County Jail. You'll be given credit for any time that you are entitled to get by law. The court cost in this case is $407. Mr. Promise, will you be able to pay the $407 prior to getting out?
No, sir.
Okay, just hold on a minute. Need to get some information from you. Thank you. Mr. Promise, I have before me a document that is titled Affidavit of Indigence. And, okay, this document seemed like it was signed on March 23rd of 2021. Can you show this to Mr. Promise? Mr. Promise, do you recognize that document?
Yes,
And is that your signature on page 2 of that same document at the top?
yes,
Now, Mr. Promise, I know that document was signed, it states March 23rd of 2021. Now, have there been some changes on that document with you financially?
yes.
Okay, could you give it back to me? And let's see. And what was the, now it says at one time you were employed. Are you still employed?
No,
So you're not employed now? And so you have no source of income, is that correct? Okay. Now, Mr. Promise, do you receive any government, I see what it says SNAP?
yes. I do not anymore.
You do not, okay, so you do not receive SNAP. So you have no form of income, is that correct? And you're not receiving any governmental benefits?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's 0. Now, your bills, have they changed too, or are they still the same?
They are the same.
Okay, so Mr. Promise, based on what we have here, the court is going to find that you are indigent. In essence, you meet the eligibility requirements of being determined to be indigent. And so the court cost in this case of $407 is going to be waived, which means you won't have to pay it because the court found that you're indigent pursuant to Article 42.15 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. Okay, so Mr. Promise, I'll just repeat the state's offering 35 days to be served in Jefferson County Jail, and you'll be given credit for any time that you're entitled to get by law. The court cost in this case is $407. However, you will not have to pay the court cost because of time because the court has determined that you're indigent pursuant to Article 42.15 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. So therefore, the court cost in this case is going to be waived. Now, Mr. Promise, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
Yes,
And do you accept the state's offer?
yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Promise, I'll follow the plea bargaining agreement that you've entered into with the state, and the court is going to waive the court cost of $407 in accordance with Article 42.15 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. He's going to be taken into custody. Yes. Just have a seat. They're going to just have a seat over there. They're gonna, he gonna have to get printed and stuff like that.
Okay. Two questions, Judge.
Yeah.
One,
Hold on. I'll follow the plea bargaining agreement that y'all have entered into with the state, just on the
my
record.
apologies. On the indigency finding, since the clerk's not here, do we need to add that to the judgment, or is that already on?
Yeah, she's gonna have, she's gonna have to, yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be added to the judgment.
And then I know that my client's still over there, but may I head to the CDC? I'm on a trial
That's-
docket at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't think you have to sign it. It's,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm good.
yeah, I don't think you have to sign anything.
Okay, I'll check and make sure in a minute.
Mm-mm.